Hello, my knit friends. I am Romy Hill, and I'm a knitwear designer and a teacher. And today I'm going to talk about my favorite tubular cast on. And I use this for hats and socks and mitts, mittens. It's perfect for everything. I love the finished edge that it gives. So it's the cast on I used for this hat, and I'm going to actually cast on another one for my kiddo. So I'll show you up close what this looks like, and then I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, so this is what a tubular cast on looks like up close, and it gives you this really beautiful finished edge. It's a lot like a machine knit garment, so you know how it has that really nice edge. You can't really tell where it's cast on. So I'm going to show you how to do this, and it starts with a provisional cast on. So I am going to be casting on to a US 3 needle. I'm going to use a crochet hook, and the 3 is the same size I'm using for all of my ribbing. So this is a provisional cast on with waste yarn, and this is how the tubular cast on starts. So I'm just going to make a slip knot here and chain a couple of stitches before I start actually chaining onto my needle. I've just done 2 stitches, and now I'm going to lay my knitting needle right side by side with my crochet hook, and my yarn is going to go over the top of both, and I'm going to pull a stitch through. So the only live stitch on this is the stitch that's on my crochet hook. The stitches on the knitting needle are not actually live stitches, but this is the bump on the back side of the chain. If you chain a crochet chain, you'll see little bumps, and that's what you would be picking up if you just did this without crocheting onto a needle. But this makes it really easy to unzip. So I'm just going to chain 60 stitches because I want a total of 120. So the provisional cast on is half of the number that you want to end up with. And again, my yarn is just going over, down behind here, and then over the top of my needle and my crochet hook. And my only live stitch is right here on my crochet hook. So I'm just going to show you what happens if I take my needle out completely here. So nothing happens at all. It's just a chain. And you can actually see the bumps here. That's what you would be picking up if you were not crocheting onto a needle, but just doing a crochet provisional cast on. Okay, I have my 60 stitches here, and here's my last stitch on my crochet hook. And I'm just going to chain a couple more stitches, and this is only on my hook. I didn't put any more stitches on my needle here, and I want to mark this end because this is the end I'm going to unzip from. So I'm just going to put my little locking stitch marker through that loop at the end and then pull it tight so it doesn't come out. So that's the first step, and I'm showing this to you in the round. Okay, so the first thing that you might notice is that there aren't that many stitches on the needle, so it's going to be very difficult to work in the round. So I like to use 2 circular needles when I start out with the stitches. And I also tend to get kind of a loose start on this. So because of that, I'm actually going to use a smaller needle for this first row with my working yarn. So this is a size 2. US 2, and I'm going to use that just for the very first round here because I find that that helps me tighten everything up to begin with. You may not need to use a smaller needle. So I'm going to work all of these stitches. I'm going to knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over all the way around, and that is going to double my stitches right off the bat. So here's my knit 1, yarn over, knit 1, yarn over. Okay, I have my first round done for my setup, And I've gone all the way around, knit one, yarn over, knit one, yarn over, all the way around. So I started with 60 stitches and now I have 120. And I'm going to move from that US 2 that I used just for this first setup round because I am just going to use the same needle that I want to use for the rest of my ribbing at this point. So let me position this properly. I chose my waste yarn so that it was really obvious where my waste yarn ended and my working yarn began. And it's also a smooth cotton waste yarn so that it's easier to unzip later. So you can see here you need to pay a little extra attention right there to that last yarn over. But if you lose it, don't worry because we can pick it back up when we get around to the end here of the round. So this is my US 3 again, and this is a kind of a sloppy stitch, this first one, because I didn't tie a knot or anything. Don't worry about that because later on you can tighten this up. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to slip that first stitch. And now I'm going to bring my working yarn in front and purl into the yarn over. So you can see here, kind of messy. I'm sort of pulling this tight so it's not as messy, but again, that can be tightened up when we get back around, so don't worry too much about it. So I'm going to go all the way around and I'm going to redistribute my stitches onto 2 circular needles to make it easier for me to work. So I am slipping my knit stitch with my yarn in back, bringing my yarn forward and purling the yarn over. So this is going to be all the way around. So slip that knit stitch into your waste yarn here, and then yarn forward and purl the yarn over, yarn back, slip the knit stitch, yarn forward, purl the yarn over, and this is going to continue all the way around. Okay, I'm around to the end of my round, and I have put all of my stitches onto 2 circular needles. So these are both US 3 circular needles. And I only have 2 more stitches left here. They're the 2 sloppiest stitches, so I just want to show you how I deal with those. So I'm going to slip that last knit stitch and then bring my yarn forward, and you can see the yarn over at the end here is just kind of open and sloppy. It's okay. It will tighten up later on. So I am just going to purl that last yarn over, and I'm going to work a couple of stitches from my other needle here. So this is a third setup row. So I have worked, I'm sorry, round. It's the third setup round. I've worked 2 rounds so far with my actual working yarn. So I'm going to place my marker to mark the beginning of this round. So in this round, I'm going to be working the stitches that I slipped in the last round. So this coming round, the third round, I am going to knit a stitch and then bring my yarn forward and slip that next stitch purlwise. You can see again, it's kind of sloppy here. And the other thing, you want to make sure again that this cast on is not twisted. So you can see pretty easily from that waste yarn here. Okay, so now I'm going to start working with my other circular needle. So this is one circular needle here. In case you've never knit with 2 circs before, it's super fast and I love it. I love it a lot more than double points or magic loop. So this is one of my circular needles, and then I have a second circular needle. So now I'm just going to continue around. So when you're working with 2 circular needles, Your stitches are always going to stay on the needle that you are working. So in other words, these stitches on this needle, this is the other end of that needle. And when I get to the end here, I will be using the other needle completely. None of the stitches are going to transfer. So again, I'm going to knit one, yarn in front, slip as if to purl, yarn to the back, knit one, yarn in front, slip the next stitch as if to purl, yarn and back. So I've come to the end of the stitches on this first circular needle, and now I'm going to set that aside and start using the second circular needle. So my last stitch over on my first circular was a slip stitch. So over here, my first one is going to be a knit stitch. And then I'm just going to continue around to the end of this round. Okay, so I'm at the end of my round here. This is my third setup round. And now I'm going to do a row of just plain ribbing. So just knit one, purl one all the way around. And then after that, I'm going to unzip my provisional cast on. That's the most fun part. And usually when I do this, I start just putting all of my stitches onto one needle, because once I unzip, I will be able to work with my stitches really easily. So I'm just going to continue all the way around just with knit one, purl one ribbing all the way around to the end of the round. Okay, we are almost to the end, and this is the most fun part. I love this part. So that's my last stitch here. Still kind of sloppy there, but it will start looking better very soon. I'm just going to slip my marker and knit a couple of stitches on the next round, just so my marker doesn't fall off. So here's the fun part. I'm going to go over to my pin here, and you remember I put it on my provisional cast on, and I'm going to take it out, and I'm just going to pull. So I'm going to pull all the way around. Might get a little bit stuck, so you just need to pull the loops apart just a little bit. But if you've used a smooth yarn, you should be fine. This will all pull out. And just going to get all the way to the end here and pull that first slip knot out. And now I can just start pulling the rest of this out. And just set it down on the table and pull that waste yarn out. So all the waste yarn is gone, and you are set to go. That is your cast on. So that's your beautiful edge, and you look like you have a couple of rows of ribbing knit here. So you can just go on to knit the rest of your ribbing as usual. So this is one of my absolute favorite cast-ons. I love it. I've used it on a bunch of my patterns, hats, and mitts and socks, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.